The magic words by Lords of Jupe called the magic words written by the Lords of Juk the Advocate from the Global Leadership Councils across from his galactic empire equivalent, and smiled in that infuriating way that only Earthborn humans can after 6 generations since day one contact was established. Formerly, humanity has core of colonies in 3 different arms of the galaxy, and there was always a push for more pioneers at the Raj of the cosmos. Clearing their throat, they repeated their last statement to the advisor. "We surrender," they said, and sipped the glass of water thoughtfully provided by the guest services of their host. The people of the Denai cluster amicable enough, they seemed to cotton on well with the humans, frequently adopting them, both in mannerisms and culture, and exchanging frequent economic favors. Saad, considering the pirate-like Denai admired of you other-scented species, even out to the 1300 members of the council itself, glaring at the suspiciously passive Earth, born the advisor who sat on 5 review committees and the analysis commission for integrating new species I. Nentotha Collective squinted all 5 of his eyes in the unusual mixture of doubt and confusion. They had heard that the trickery and frequent violence endemic to the species after all. What do you mean we surrender the human all 2 meters of the Muttersoft? Simply that we as a species are here, by surrendering any and all rights and responsibilities to our stated foes in the ongoing war, which would be your own race as of last 5 hours. The war, mostly a formality as the battle lines weren't even drawn, had just been bottlenecked as it been named Gish to be simultaneo. Usly preparing for war against an opponent which had just unilaterally surrendered it also broke almost 50 aspects of the covenant of responsibilities and rights of the sapient life forms. Agreement, a charter element of the doctrine of the law, and faith in their 1500-y history as an elevated species, 0 species, had ever surrendered without so much as a single shopping fired, but the human noted that again elaborated our entire population of which I am elected representative pursuant to the mandate of warfare declared per the dictamo. Fire species signed Charter Line 9515 subset 6 and surrendering the entire to your species care and handling in direct accordance with the covenant of responsibilities and rights of sapient life forms. Agreement Line 5 all life must be cherished, supported, and maintained in dignity and health by an aggressor who has declared legal combat against its hooded surrender the human smile. Again broad at this time, staring at the bureaucratic nightmare still unfolding in front of them, the advisor turned to their side, leaning over to Keyup, their consuite, finding the analyst already citing chapter and verses to the accuracy, the legally binding nature, and the grade school level brief. Aghast, the turned back to see that the human was already holding up a highlighted page on ad topids lidding it into their immediate vicinity on the glossy table. I've taken the liberty of switching the text formatting to your native tongue, which I hope isn't too presumptuous of me, the human said. Somehow smiling even more, gasping, the advisor mutely accepted the table. Eyes glazing over a sit was reviewed, a pute opening in their upper stom. Cast the reality of its unkin-hearted and fierce, and tears threatened to fall. There's gotta be a mistake, head vised to said, how can we take you at your word? And there's over 19 billion. If Youthie almost shout the final word, dropping the tablet, the human patient and even benevolent, then tapped a second tablet, placing it within arm's reach of the advisor, the diaspora, who have long since agreed to follow the fractional majority of the voting public. They said politely can be contacted directly through their respective media representatives. You find that the absolute majority in the 97th percentile are in full agreement that we're unilaterally surrendering to youth. The smile against all probability grew yet again, shattering tea. Head visor reached for their consuite, reading only the initial headers of the messages which flew across the screen: calls for violence against them, a general advocacy vote for their immediate removals, some dismissals from assaulted organizations, word about the surrender it seemed had leaked already. We can't support that, the human meaning emboldened their hands primly and angled their head a gesture of sfool pes and shooing. Yet they said firmly, you wish to make war with us, knowing what we can and have done in the past, aware that we wouldn't have died by the milli. Onstow and you who have the single largest fleet of star cruisers, FOF bombers, and an arsenal like any 60s combined. And now, Welly, you're saying that you can't afford to win. They fed their eyebrows, shaking the head. Now they continued, you wanted war. Congratulations, you. Now where the wounded and grieved were entirely your responsibility. You must feed, you ensure that we're all healthy and provide us with reasonable means to settle in non-dominion space as to elevate ourselves according to RIT and man mandate. They leaned in further, your own RIT, your own mandate. This is your victory. Take some pride in it. Then they smiled wide enough. It seemed to split their head too. Their eyes gleamed with malicious intent, masquerading only just with civility and child The advisors steeled their resolve and then said, "Where allowed with the nervous swallow their tongue brisk the meager attempt to control the narrative. You have victory parades in your home world, on your colonies, through your hotlands annually. In fact, and there's a beautiful most 80 cities per settled world to this." The human nodded that infuriating no dabso. "Lutely we encourage it," they said. "However, we're not required to be present for them. Those parades will be held for empty boulevards. You'll find weeks even. Months of travel so your drivers can air out their vehicles, paraded stomping troops can jet along strong view of whatever art we have to display for the man then, and it'll be weeks, even month, of cramped, unpleasant conditions, reviewing their thoughts about you and your impressions on how they should spend their time." This smile became even bigger this time, exposing teeth. The human took another drink of water. "No," they continued, "myself, I wouldn't want to be aboard one of those ships of well-armed, angry Southern ground troops, some of whom may not share your zealotrum might avengo so far as to say it'll be downright on popular decision, holding those parades to celebrate this victory." They shrugged your call, a guest staring at the space between them. The advisor held their head in their hands, sobbing softly the grim future ahead of them, now crystal clear. Somehow enough funds would have to appear to support billions of suddenly suffering refugees, all in the name of victory. On paper, but no oratory gained worth occupying. "But what if we surrender to youth?" advisor said, eyes brimming with tears, the human leaning overs, squeezed their shoulder a warm, comforting touch. "It thought you would never ask." They rose to their full height, extending their hand across the desk, and smiled in genuine appreciation. First they said, "You have to say the words." The future suddenly dark grew a spot of hope. "We surrender two people shared as mile, and a future for the first time." End of story. I'd quickly like to thank T5 Peeps, Cold War Boomer, Waffen Sankus, Bushmaster 177, Henry, Baird, Casper, Aral, Cold War Boomer, Baffin, Elijah, Silver Cross Dragon, Ray, and Scust. Thank you very much.